There's the non-sicha from the Rebbe, Chelik Gimel, brought down also in the surface of Chelik Zayin, about the Atאריך. Somebody goes over the Atאריך in the middle of In Sefira. The Rebbe writes, as Yedua sleep them was the earth is a kado, the akugel, und die Sonne was leit ihr gang wird bestimmte Tag, kreist darum die kado ha'oretz. That the earth is like a ball, and the sun goes around the earth. Muss sein a gewisse kav of the earth, so there has to be a certain line on the earth, which is called the kav atאריך. Was dort teilen sich die Tag voneinander, dort teilen sich voneinander die Tag, that over there, but this kav, the days separate. Und im Ort von ein Seite kav is abgerufen von der zweiten Hakargen Meisel Eis, that one side of this line is removed approximately a full day, 24 hours. And then Ort from the zweiten Seite from the kav, from the place in the second side of this line. Made of an emitzer gate a riber of them kav, so therefore when somebody goes through, passes over this line, that the überspringen at Tag, so he's going to skip a day. In other words, he's going to lose a day. A Sonntag wird kommen, nach Sonntag wird kommen Dienstag, that after Sunday will come Tuesday, or similar. In bet fällen am Eis Leis, he's going to miss an entire day. If he goes from Mizrach from Ma'ariv, if he goes from Mizrach from east to west. Other in bet zukommen am Eis Leis, a Sonntag noch at Sonntag, will come add a day, Sunday after Sunday. If he goes from Ma'ariv from Mizrach, if he's traveling from west to east, gegen den Gang von der Sonne, against the movement of the sun. Now, that's what everybody knows is the date line. I mean, for example, you travel from Australia to America, so you gain a day. You left Australia Tuesday, and you traveled over there 24 hours, and you arrived in America on Tuesday. When you travel from America to Australia, and so you lose a day. You left over here on Sunday, you traveled X amount of hours, and you arrive over there on Tuesday. You missed out on Monday. So now the Rebbe has a psak over here that when it comes to שיעןר, a person has to keep on counting his own count. And he does not do like he travels from here to Australia, for example, and he loses a day. He has to keep on counting the way he was counting, and he'll be in his Sefira one day behind the people in Australia. When he travels from Australia to America, when he gains a day, he has to keep on counting the way he counted, and he'll be one day ahead of all the people in America. That's the non psak from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe goes on that because of that, you also have to keep shuas according to your own Sefira, and not according to, and this, שיעąר is different than Shabbos and Yom Tov, because when it comes to Shabbos and Yom Tov, even though you had, from last Shabbos, only 6 days passed by when you travel from America to Australia, you'll have to keep Shabbos, what in your count is the 6th day, but you'll have to keep Shabbos like in Australia, that over there it's the 7th day. The same thing with Yom Tov, that even though by you it might be, let's say Yud Gimel Nisan, according to your count, but you're going to have to keep Pesach according to Australia, and the other way around. If you traveled from Australia to America and you gain a day, so even though according to you it's still only Erev Pesach, according to you it should already be Pesach, according to your traveling, but you're going to have to keep Pesach the way America keeps Pesach. Now, the whole world, but except for a few that understood what the Rebbe was writing, they argue on this, and they can't understand it. That the Rebbe's raya is when because in the pasuk it says that Shavuos is not dependent on a certain day of the month. It's only dependent on the 50th. In Alder Rishonim it says Shavuos is the 50th day of Sefira. And therefore you have to keep Shavuos according to your count. And since you have to count since you have to keep on counting according to your count, so therefore you're going to be either a day ahead or a day behind the people of Australia or America, depending which way you traveled. Spheres, because, like mentioned, so the Rebbe writes the reason, weil, wie gesagt, Spheres ist nicht kein Mitzvah auf den Klal Jiden, das ist ein Mitzvah auf jeden Yochid besonder. It's a mitzvah on every single Jew separately. Belgeher Shabbos and andere Yom Tovim, Garing Shabbos and other Yom Tovim, darf die Yochid sich abhieten bei den Cheshbon von den Teshavim, so he has to keep Shabbos and Yom Tov according to the people of the country that he arrived. Was befindet sich in jedem Ort. Es ist nicht gewährt zu beim, herübergehende Kav ist der 7. Tag, derselbe wie bei der Einwohner. It doesn't make a difference that by him, it's not the same day as it is by the people. Weil die Kviyas von Shabbos ist nicht übergegeben geworden zu jedem Yochid besonder. The Kviyas of Shabbos was not given to every individual separately. Derselbe ist mit der Yom Tov, was Kviyas is bestimmt durch ein Bezdin. Its Kviyas is according to one Bezdin for alle Yidden. And Bisman is durch their Cheshbon, the Cheshbon that Bezdin made. That's how we keep Yom Tov. And so is echt when again Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Andere is aber bei Sfiras Eimer, that is not the Chol Echad ve'Echad. That Sfiras Eimer is different. It has to be by every single individual separately. About the mitzvah from Sefira is for jeden Yochid besonder, since the mitzvah of Sefira is for every single individual separately. Is the Chmuven as ich in dem Cheshbon from Sefira is nicht abhängig in the Cheshbon from the Zweiten. So in the calculation of Sefira, he's not dependent on the calculation of others. No, the mitzvah is soll zählen die Tage, wie sie sind durch bei ihm, that he has to count the days according to the way it is by him. Okay, that in other words, that Sefira is different than Yom Tov and Shabbos, because Yom Tov and Shabbos is dependent on the seventh day of the world. It's not dependent on every individual, but for himself. And the Yom Tov is dependent on Bezdin, not on every individual. Masha'enkin Sefira Sa'emer is Sefira l'chol echad ve'echad. It's dependent on every single individual separately. So all the Chayim don't understand that the Chura Sefira Sa'emer l'chol yochid ve'yochid just means that every yochid has the mitzvah. But how does he have the mitzvah? I'll claim it shouldn't be any different, that since over here it's let's say the 12th day of Sefira, even though by him it's the 11th or the 13th, it doesn't make a difference. He has to count according to the Metzias and the Chefetz Hayom in the place where he's in. That's the way they understand. And therefore, a lot of Achronim go ahead and say they don't understand the Rebbe, and they ask questions, and it doesn't make sense, and that Shavuot should be different than any other Yom Tov. They don't accept it. So if you look into their words and the reasons why they argue, comes out that all these Achronim that want to argue with the Rebbe, they made two mistakes. There's two things they didn't understand. Number one, they don't understand what Ata'arich is. Number two, they don't understand what the mitzvah of Sefira Sa'emer is. They possibly made a mistake in each one of those things. Or either they made a mistake in both, or they made a mistake in one. And that's the reason for their arguments. So in order to understand what the Rebbe is saying, we first have to be magdir. We have to define what exactly is the Ata'arich about. The Achronim, they seem to have an understanding that the Ata'arich, that I travel from here to Australia and I lose a day, that after Sunday comes Tuesday, that I left America Sunday and the day changed, and in Australia all at once it's Tuesday and I didn't have a Monday. And the same way, the other way around, if I travel from Australia to America, So I left there Sunday, and I traveled, and I had a nightfall in the morning, and according to my calculation, it should be Monday. But I left there Sunday, and according to my calculation, now it should be Monday already. But I come to America, it's Sunday all over again. So they understand Kavat Tarikh. That's the way it's muchach from a lot of their tshuvas in which they make a terrible mistake. They understand what's the meaning of Kavat Tarikh. That when I travel from America to Australia and I gain a day, I'm traveling into the future. And that's why I'm gaining a day, because I traveled into the future. I skipped a day of the week. I traveled into the future. When I travel from Australia to America, I'm traveling into the past, because Sunday comes after Sunday, so I'm traveling into the past. Where did I see that that's the way they understood Kavat Tarikh? Because they have a shaila that, for example, somebody became a bar mitzvah in Australia, and then he traveled to America, he lost a day. Does he become a cotton again? Because he lost a day. Or, for example, that's one question that they have over there. Then they have another question that if somebody, for example, davened already on Tuesday, and he comes to America, and it's Tuesday all over again. Is he chayiv b'tefillah? Is he not chayiv b'tefillah? And they have all kinds of chikiras. Is it the chayiv ha'gavra? Is it chayiv ha'yoyim? You already davened Tuesday. So therefore, since you already davened Tuesday, maybe he doesn't have to daven over again. Does he have to put on tefillin again? He already put on tefillin on Tuesday. That's the way their shakla v'taya goes back and forth. In other words, what they understood is that when I have the Sunday after Sunday, when I came to America, I already had Sunday. Now I have again the same Sunday. I already did the chiyuvim of Sunday. Or when I traveled from America to Australia, so I lost a day, and so therefore, since I lost a day, so therefore, I don't have that day. And that day just disappeared. I traveled into the future. And that's the way they go, and that's the way they have a shakla v'taya in the shailas. So they Pasha don't understand what Kavat Tarikh is about. If you take a look at the G'dayla Achreinim, the Maisa Hashem, the Marid, the Chasam Sofer, they say that when in Sheishis Mei Breishis, when it's Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, there was not a Yom Rishon throughout the whole earth, in the whole circumference of the earth. That just like we have right now, that the sun is traveling, and the shkia or the zricha is different times. So the same thing is the Yom Rishon of Ma'aseh Bereishis, as it went around the Kadu Ha'oretz, slowly, there was in the beginning of the Kav, that's where the Yom Rishon started. And this Yom Rishon slowly manifested itself down over here in the Kadu Ha'oretz, slowly, and it took 24 hours for it to manifest itself to the other side of the line of the Kavat Tarikh. And that's the way since the time of Ma'aseh Bereishis, that's the way the Bria had. When the Eibishter said that there should be Vahi so the Ur started on one side of the Kav, and it slowly spread until it came to the other side of the Kav. That the Ma'aseh Bereishis was not that the whole Kadu Oretz at one time had the same thing. Just like the day today moves slowly, according to the Mahalach of the sun. So the same thing by Ma'aseh Bereishis, the way the Vihi Ur manifested itself and came down into the earth. So it took 24 hours for it to reach the entire Kadu Oretz. And the same thing with the rest of Ma'aseh Bereishis. In other words, it's not something that we just happen to have today, because today we are conveyed the days according to the sun. That's the way the Dvar Havaya manifested itself and came down over here in Gashmias, slowly, just like the sun moves slowly. So also the Yomim of Ma'aseh Bereishis went in the same way. So it comes out, that's one point. The second point, that's muchach from a lot of places, in Chazal, from Mikrois, and Rishonim, and Achronim, that what's kaveya the yom, the Mahalach HaShemesh, like the Rebbe writes in the Sikha. According to the Mahalach HaShemesh, that's how we kaveya the days, that from Shkia to Shkia, that's one day, or from Seisek Chachavim to Seisek Chachavim, which depends on the Shitas of Rishonim, where the day starts, whether it's Seisek Chachavim or Shkia, and that's how the day manifests itself. Through the Mahalach HaShemesh. So it comes out like this, that on the west side of the Kav, over there, the day started 24 hours earlier than on the east side of the Kav. And therefore, when in Australia it's Tuesday, even though that in America it's only Monday, the meaning is because in Australia there's one more day from Sheshis May Bereshis, and that's what makes it Tuesday. That's when we're dealing with the what day it is. But when we're dealing with the Echeftes Hazman, the person that travels, and he travels from America to Australia, and he gains a day. Since he only had one shkia or one zricha, so the Cheftes Hazman is the day as far as the person is concerned. It's not the person himself, not the date of the day, which day it is. But as far as the Cheftes Hazman is concerned, the time that passed by, how much time passed by. If there was no Shkia, so he's in the same day. Let's say he's traveling on Tuesday, there was no Shkia. So this that in America was Monday, in Australia it's Tuesday. Even though that as far as which day it is, so in Australia it's one day ahead than America, that's because this day in Australia is coming one day after, from Sheshis May Bereshis, it has one day more to count it, and that's what makes it Tuesday. In America, it has one day less because the Metzias of the game came into being one day later, 24 hours later, in the second side of the Kav. That's what makes the Kav. When I'm dealing with the Zman itself, it's the Zman of one day. What din does this day have? Does this day have the din of Tuesday, or does this day have the din of Monday? That depends where you are. Because in the west side of the Kav, there is one day more from Sheshis May Bereshis because the Bria started one day earlier than on the east side of the Kav. Because until the Metzias of Yom came into the west and into the east side of the Kav, it took 24 hours. And then there was no day. But right now, in the Metzias of the Zman, the way we have it today, it's the same day, because there was no Shkia to separate the days. This day is mamish the same day, except in the west side of the Kav. In the west side of the Kav, over there, this day is coming one day after of the east side of the Kav. Because the days from Sheshis May Bereshis started 24 hours earlier on the west side of the Kav than it started on the east side of the Kav. That's the Metzias of Kav HaTaarich. I'm not traveling into any future. I'm not traveling into any past. Mitzad the Cheftes Hazman, it's the same day. The same day. But except that this day that is on the east side of the Kav has in its history one day more than on the west side of the Kav, it has in its history one day more than it has on the east side of the Kav. Where did I see that they made that mistake? Because a lot of these Achronim, they say, what is the Rebbe talking about? That I've skipped a day, and therefore I have to keep on counting the way I counted, and I'll be a day ahead or a day behind. The din is in Sefira Omer that if I didn't count the night, and I still have the day, in the daytime, I remind myself that I didn't count last night, so I can still count and keep on counting. So they say that when I travel across the Atאריך, and let's say I arrive in the middle of Tuesday, I lost Monday, and I arrive in the middle of Tuesday, why do I have to keep on counting according to my count? It's right now Tuesday, even though I didn't count the night of Tuesday, I missed the night of Tuesday, I lost the night of Tuesday. So, but right now it's the day of Tuesday. So let me count the Sefira B'Yom, just like if I didn't count it all the night of Tuesday. If I forgot to count the night of Tuesday, let me count in the daytime. So and that's how they're machriya. And then that's one of the pillars that they ask on the Sikh of the Rebbe, that even though I lose a day or gain a day, when I lose a day, when I gain a day, it's different. But when I lose a day, even though I lost a day, but I still have the day. Where the Metzias of the Rebbe, they understand it's only if, let's say, the Yitzur, I came in the beginning of Tuesday to Australia. In the beginning I came in the beginning. I left Sunday night. I came in the beginning of Tuesday to Australia. So therefore now I don't have the whole Monday. I won't have the whole Monday. So then I lost a day. So that's the Metzias. Or the other way around. That let's keep on this way around. So I came, so they say, so that's a Metzias built to Shchicha. Most of the time I arrive in the middle of the day. So even though I lost the night of Tuesday, I had the Monday, part of the Monday, and I'll count the Monday. And then I come in Australia and it's the middle of Tuesday, so I'll count Tuesday. So even though I don't have the night of Tuesday, I missed the night of Tuesday, let me count Tuesday, just like when I didn't count at night. And that's the way, I don't want to go to the names of the Achreinim that they write that like a dover poshut, that since in most of the Metzias I still have part of Tuesday, and I had part of Monday. So what's wrong that I just keep on counting? I count Tuesday the way it's in Australia, and I keep on counting. I didn't miss anything, even though I lost a day. But I still have the day of Tuesday to count. So here you see their mistake. Did they understood Kav Tarikh? I traveled into the future. I traveled into Tuesday, and therefore I still have Tuesday. And what they don't understand is that since I didn't have a shkia or a zricha, so therefore, for me, the day is the same day. And this day, which is the same day, in Australia it has a din of Tuesday. In America it has a din of Monday. So, how can I count the same day? I counted Monday, and this day, which was Monday, I'm now going to give it a new sphere. I'm going to give it two spheres. I'm going to give it the sphere of Monday, and we're going to give it the sphere of Tuesday. That's impossible. One day can't have two spheres. Each day can only have one sphere. So you see that they understood that I came into a new day because the day, the days of the week, it has a din of Tuesday. So therefore, I have part of Tuesday. And I had Monday before, so I have part of Monday. So even though I lost a day in the Sachakol, I lost 24 hours in the Sachakol, but I had part of Monday and I had part of Tuesday. So therefore, why can't I count in that part of Tuesday that I'm getting when I'm traveling to Australia? What they don't understand is that that's not the pshat of Kav Tarikh. The pshat of Kav Tarikh is that it's the same day, except this day, which is on this side of the Kav, on the east side of the Kav, has a din of Monday, and the same day on the west side of the Kav has a din of Tuesday. So therefore, the same day I can't count twice. And therefore, I lost a day. Now the question is, since I lost a day, I can't, what do you mean I lost a day? That over here it's Tuesday already. And it's not, and I don't, and I never had a shkia to make the Monday into a Tuesday. I never had that. It's the same day. So therefore, I have to, so now the question is, can I count or can I not count? Since this day, I already counted as Monday when I was in America, and now I gained a day and it's the middle of Tuesday when I come to Australia, and it's the same day. There was no shkia to separate these two times. So therefore, how can I go ahead and count the same day twice? And So there, and therefore in my Sefira, I lost a day. I can't count the same day twice. I lost a day. It doesn't mean that because I arrived on the first minute of Tuesday, even if I arrive in the middle of Tuesday. But since there was nothing to separate the day that I counted as Monday, the 6th day of Sefira, the 10th day of Sefira, there was nothing to separate the 10th day of Sefira to the 11th day because there was no Shkia, because the Yomim and the Kvoim, whether the time is a different day, that depends on the Mahalach HaShemesh, that depends on the Shkias HaShemesh, the Zrichas HaShemesh, and I didn't have that. So therefore, for me, the person that's traveling is the same day, except this same day, which in America has the din of Monday, in Australia it has the din of Tuesday. Because in Australia, there was 1 day more from the time of Sheshis Mei Bereshis. That's the Metzias of Kavatari. And therefore, for example, when they clear, I already davened Tuesday. I came to America, it's Tuesday again. Since I had a Shkia, it's a different day. And since it's a different day, even though the din of the day is Tuesday, even that's the din of the day. But a Metzias HaYom is a different Yom. Because I had a Shkia, and the days, what separates one day from the next day is the Mahalach HaShemesh, and not the 24 hours, not the time, but the Mahalach HaShemesh is what separates the day. So therefore, so that's the first mistake that they made. That they didn't understand the whole question of what the Metzias of Kavatari is. That the Metzias of Kavatari is not the pshat, I'm traveling into the future, I'm traveling into the past. The Metzias of Kavatari is that the days are nikva according to the Mahalach HaShemesh. What separates one day from another day? What separates that this is day 1 and this is day 2? That's only the Shki and the Mahalach HaShemesh. That's the only thing that separates. What is the definition of this day? That in Australia is different than in America. Because over here in Australia, there was 1 day more from Sheshis Mei Bereshis, so therefore it's considered Tuesday, and in America it's considered Monday. That's the Metzias of the Kavatari. So that's the first mistake that they made, that they didn't understand what the Metzias of Kavatari is. The second mistake that they made is what the Gedder of Sefira Eimer is. They understood Sefira Eimer, the pshat of Sefira Eimer is that each day has its count. And I just have to say the count, what the day is, mitzad atzman. That's what Sefira Eimer is. The whole mitzvah of Sefira Eimer is to go ahead from Mochas HaShabbos. There's so many days. Mitzad the etzem Metzias HaYom. And therefore, I have to say the mitzvah of Sefira Eimer is to say what the Metzias of the day is. That's what the mitzvah of Sefira Eimer is. And therefore, they go ahead and they ask, what raya does the Rebbe have from the fact that Sefira Eimer is different than the kriyas of every Yom Tov and every Shabbos? All that the Sefira L'chol Echad Ve'echad says is that everybody has a mitzvah of counting. Everybody has a mitzvah to say what the day is. And that's it. But what day is it? That depends on the market. What day it is, that depends on the place where I am. In America, it's Yud Gimel Eimer. In Australia, it's Yud Dalet Eimer. And therefore, I have to count according to the Metzias of the day, of what the day is, Mitzad Atzma. That's the way they understand, and besides that, they ask all the questions, and that leads to the other questions that they don't understand Shavuos, and they don't understand the whole Metzias. So over here, partially that they don't understand what the mitzvah of Sefira Eimer is. Let's take a look the way the Rishonim understand the Sefira Eimer. Let's start off with the Ramban. That's where the mitzvah of Sefira Eimer is in Parshas Emer. So Ramban says, "Esfartem lechem kamo yelakachtem lechem." Esfartem lechem is like it says also by lulav lekachtem lechem. Shtei sefira v'lekicha lekol echad ve'echad. Since it says lechem, so we darshan it has to be a sefira by Sefira Eimer and by lulav where it says lekachtem lechem lekicha lekol echad ve'echad. That's how the Ramban starts off, and which is based on the drosha of the Gemara in Menachos Samach Vav. Shtei sefira lekol echad ve'echad. So now the Ramban adds, next line, they should count with his mouth and mention the cheshbon. Kashakibla Rabbi saying that's our Kashakibla Rabbi saying like over here all at once. Kiblu Rabbi saying. He starts off with the drosha before he should drosha Sfartem lechem shtei sefira lekol echad ve'echad, just like it says by lekicha shtei lekicha lekol echad ve'echad. So what does it mean? Kashakibla shiyimna bepiv v'yaske cheshboina kashakibla Rabbi saying. What does he want with that? What is he adding over here? He said everybody has to count. What's the special Kabbalah over here? The Ein came v'soferloi, and the v'soferloi that it says by Zov and Sava, v'soferloi, v'soferloi. So over there it's not like that. Because if they want, they don't have to be tired themselves. They don't have to go to the mikveh or in the Mayim Chaim by Azov. It only means that they shouldn't forget it. The Ramban goes on. That it says by Yovel. He says that that's the sheet of the Ramban. The Ramban argues. The Ramban has a suffix, as we soon see. It's also just like by Zov and Zava that you shouldn't forget. And so Pashto is learned, but Teres Kodim it says that Bezdin counts. Now at once he has a suffix like the sheet of the Rambam. That since there's a drosha in the Teres Kodim, that there's a mitzvah that Bezdin has to count, like it is by Sefira Eimer, or that Bezdin has to be careful not to forget, so they should be able to be mekadosh l'shnasa chamishim. That's the Ramban. So when you learn the Ramban mekufio, when you learn it fast, so it's mashma from the Ramban. The Ramban is saying the Sfartem lechem is a mitzvah, and the v'sofer loy and v'sofer lo that by Zov and Zov it's not a mitzvah. That's the way. And the reason why it's not a mitzvah, Shem Rotzu Eimdim Tumas. And that the Pichodosh, the Yehudo, I'll ask a question. Who cares in Rotzu Eimdim Tumas? Tvila, according to everybody, Tvila of Zov and Zov, according to everybody, is a mitzvah. They're not mechuyev to go ahead and table. So why is Sefira any different than the etzim Tvila? Or some Achronim also ask a kasha from Shchita. There's no chiyuv to shecht. Avbikein is counted as one of the mitzvahs. If you want to eat, the only way you can eat is if you shecht. So it's counted as one of the mitzvahs. So they ask, what is the Ramban saying over here that and therefore it's not a mitzvah? We find a lot of mitzvahs that are not mitzvahs mechuyovis, that it's only if you want to become Torah, so you have to table yourself. That's the kasha of in Shayas Yehuda, in Pri Chodesh, and other Gedei Achronim ask this question on the Ramban. So the portion of the Pshat in the Ramban, the Hemshech in Yonim, is that she take Sefira v'lekicha lekol echad ve'echad, that everybody's mechuyev to count, just like everybody's mechuyev to take a lulav. What is this count? Shiyimna bepi v'yaske cheshboinei. In other words, Sefira, I'm accomplishing something. Sefira, I'm doing something. It's not only that I have to have in my mind the what day it is, or to mention what day it is, but I have to count. What does counting mean? Let me be magdim something first. Let me be magdim, so it should be clearer. The Magen Avraham says in Hilchos Eimer that you're allowed to count in any language that you understand. But if you don't understand the language, so you're not yetzer with the Sefira, even in the Lashon HaKodesh, if you don't understand it. So the Lashon of the Magen Avraham is Kiven de Yoda Maiko Omar Ein Zu Sefira Klal. Since you don't know what you're saying, so this is not considered a Sefira. The Alter Rebbe brings this halacha in Tov Pei Tes, but he changes the Lashon a little bit. The Alter Rebbe says, Mutter lisper b'chol Lashon shemevin, that you're allowed to count any language that you understand. Our ein mevin ha Lashon shel sefer boy afilu sofa b'Lashon HaKodesh yemeina mevina liyotza. If you don't understand the language in which you're counting, so you're not yetzer. So the Alter Rebbe, the Magen Avraham Lashon is Kiven de Yoda Maika Omar Ein Zu Sefira Klal. The Lashon of the Alter Rebbe is the Kimish En Yedea HaMinyan, because you don't know the minyan. He doesn't say Yoda Maika Omar. You don't know the minyan Ein Zu Sefira Klal, because you don't know the count. You don't know the number. That's why it's not a Sefira. The Magen Avraham says Yoda Maika Omar. The Alter Rebbe says Yoda HaMinyan. Now, why is the Alter Rebbe changing the Lashon over here? Yoda HaMinyan. Yoda Maika Omar. It says everything. You don't know what you're saying, so it's not a Sefira. The Yavitz argues, because since the Mishnah in Seit Lav Lamed Beis says Eidon Emorim B'chol Lashon, and Taisus over there asks the question, why doesn't it mention Kiddush? Why doesn't it mention all the brachas? Why does etc.? So Taisus says that because by all the other things, even if you don't understand what you're saying, you're still yetzer. Mashenkin, these things in the Mishnah that it says Emorim B'chol Lashon, you have to understand what you're saying. So one of the things that the Mishnah doesn't count is Sefira Eimer. So just like Taisus says on Kiddush and all the other things that the Mishnah doesn't count, and even if you don't understand the Yetzer, Sefira Eimer also, even if you don't understand the Yetzer. That's why the Yavitz argues on the Magen Avraham. So there's a known Dvar Avraham, the Rebbe brings it in a couple of places. He says that that's not a question. But the Mishnah in Seit Lamed Beis and what Taisus is talking about, there's a certain din of mirror, you have to say a certain bracha. By certain things, you have to understand what you're saying in order to be yetzer. By other things, you don't have to understand, but there's a din of mirror. I say by Sefira, there's no din of that I'm saying something. There's no, I'm not saying a posuk, I'm not saying a bracha. I have to count. And counting is only if I know what I'm counting. If I don't know what I'm counting, so I'm not counting. That's the meaning of counting. Counting is that it's a dover boru. It brings the taste in Bob Mitzvah that by Siri Vadavle, Siri Sofik, that it says that even a rave doesn't help, because counting is a dover boru that I know exactly what it is. If I don't know exactly what it is, even though I have a rave, it doesn't help. That's the meaning of Sefira. So by Sefira, the reason why I have to understand is not because I have to understand what I'm saying. There's no din of Amira daf. There's the din of Sefira. So there's a din of Sefira that I have to know what I'm counting. In order for the count to be a count, I have to know what I'm counting. If I don't know what I'm counting, that's not a Sefira. That's saying. Saying is not counting. Counting is knowing what it is. That's what the Dvar Avraham, he answers the Yavet's question. So there is a B'shur Leib Diskin that wants to make a pshara. The B'shur Leib Diskin wants to say that knowledge is in the mind. Amira is just saying the words. If let's say, for example, I know today is the 10th day of Sefira, and I say Hayay Masar Yom Lo'emer, I don't know what the word Hayay means, I don't know what Asara means, I don't know what Yomi means, I don't know the translation of the words. But I know that with these words I'm counting the 10th day of Sefira. So if B'shur like this wants to say to you Yetzi, wants to make like a pshara, that you don't have to know the translation of the words, but it's good enough if as long as you know that it's the 10th day and with these words I'm counting. And B'shur brings a dogma from Bittul Chometz. That by Bittul Chometz, Ikar Bittul is belief, and therefore when somebody, when he says Bittul Chometz, he thinks he's saying a Tchina, he's not Yetzer, but there's a Klor Halacha. The Alter Rebbe brings it down also, that if, let's say, I know with these words that I'm saying by bittul chometz, I'm being mevatel my chometz, so that's good enough. Because ikar bittul b'leif, so it's good enough. So he wants to shtel tzu by Sefira also, that if I know exactly what day it is, except I don't know the translation of the words, so that's good enough. So Rabbi Ezra Shochet, he made a mistake. The Alter Rebbe writes clearly what the difference is. Bittul chometz is a different din. The Alter Rebbe in Siman Kuf Pei Hey, in the first day where he says that you have to understand what you're saying. If you don't understand it, you're not Yetzer. So the Alter Rebbe over there says that since it says Hashem Elokecha and you don't understand the words of the bracha, so you're not Yetzer. Even if you know that with these words I'm benching the Eibishter. Even though you know with these words I'm benching, you're still not Yetzer because you don't understand. Why? Because you have to understand the words that you're saying in order to be Yetzer. So the Alter Rebbe says, I in Tov Lamed Dalet, we say that that if you understand what these words are being mevatel chometz, so that's good enough. So the Alter Rebbe says, that's only over there by bittul. The ikar bittul is the lev. The whole amira by bittul is only that the Chazal were mesakin that I should speak out what I'm thinking in my heart. The din lechatchila is not to speak out. The din lechatchila is to be mevatel in your heart. That's the ikar din. So Chazal were mesakin that I have to speak out what I'm thinking. So over there, when I'm saying the words, and I know with these words I'm being mevatel chometz, that's good enough because ikar bittul believe. That it is levorich bepeh. It's not to think to bless the Eibishter. It's not to I have to be mevorich bepeh. And therefore, if I don't understand the words that I'm saying, I'm not being mevorich bepeh. It's mevorich believe, and that's not good enough according to that day. So that's the clear chiluk. So now the question over here by Sefira Sa'im. In order to say what the Rabbi Ezra wants to say would be that the main din of Sefira is lisper bepeh, lisper b'machshava, lisper b'leiv. Then you could say his svar. Mashen kain over here, it's shiyimne bepiv, and that's the pshat in the Alter Rebbe. What the Alter Rebbe is saying, because to say pshat in the Alter Rebbe the way Rabbi Leib Diskin says, it's impossible. Let's take a look. The lashon of the Alter Rebbe, Sif Yud, mutter lisper b'chol lashon shel mevin. He starts off the Sif that it's a din in the lashon, that it has to be a lashon that I understand what I'm saying. It's not a din tzorich ladas es hamisper. That's not the din that the Alter Rebbe starts off. That the serious aim with tzorich ladas hamisper, tzorich ladas mahayei. That's not how the Alter Rebbe starts off. The Alter Rebbe starts off mutter lisper b'chol lashon shemevin. That you have that aval einem mevin a lashon, ein a lashon. So it's a din in the lashon. The lashon. I'm talking about the lashon over here. The lashon has to be a lashon shemevin. So what's the pshat? The king she'eni yedei haminyan, that you don't know the minyan. What the Alter Rebbe is saying is, it's not only a din she'eni yedei ma'ik omar. You have to, in order to be Yetzer Sefira, there's a din of Sefira b'peh, not b'machshava. That you have to, and since I don't understand the words of the minyan, that's why I'm not Yetzer. That any day I'm minyan doesn't mean in my machshava could be I know the minyan, but there's a lashon of Sefira b'peh. That's what, and I have to know. So now, l'chura, what's the pshat of Sefira b'peh? What's the pshat? And if you take a look, according to this, we understand what the Ramban is saying. The Ramban says, "L'kachtem lechem shtei Sefira l'kicha l'kol echad." What's the pshat Sefira l'kol echad? If it's just a question of knowing which day it is, so what's the special chiyuv of every single individual? The chiyuv of every single individual is just like by Metilas Lulav, that every single individual has to take the lulav, has to do a ma'aser. So also by Sefira, it's a halacha sheyimne, like the hemshech of the Ramban, sheyimne bepiv, v'yasker. It's not good enough to know the minyan, but that you have to count it. Not like by Zav and Zavav over there, they don't have to count, they don't have to mention the peh. That the Shlo argues, that's a separate discussion. That's what the Noid of Yehuda discusses over there. Right? That not that by Zav and Zavav, by Zav and Zavav, it's only that they should know Machshava which day it is. Masha'en came by Sefira, is Sheyim le bepiv, Yasker Cheshma, you have to say the Cheshma. And then he has a suffix by Yovel, where the Bezdin HaGodel has to mention it, has to say it, or they should just have their calculation in their head, so they should be able to be Mekadosh Nasa Chamishi. That's a pshat. So therefore, so what's the ptak now? Now let's understand. When it comes to Sefira, calculations I make in my head. I don't make calculations with my mouth. So what's the pshat Sefira b'peh? If it's an union of Sefira, make a calculation which day it is, what day it is. So that's done b'machshov. It's not done b'piv. It's not done b'piv. It's done b'machshov. So what's the pshat shiyimne b'peh? What's pshat Sefira b'peh? The Sefira is done only calculation. It's only when I know what it is. Where do I know? In my mind. My mouth doesn't know. My mouth is just saying what my mind understands, what my mind knows. So when I say that it's halacha of the peh, so obviously it's not only stama halacha of saying which day it is, of knowing which day it is, of saying which day it is, but I have to make a halois. I have to make the day. I have to say that this day is yom echad l'omer, yom shnei yomim l'omer. I have to say that, and by counting, I'm making this day, and I'm making the chalois of shnei yomim l'omer. That's the meaning of the peh, that I'm accomplishing something. And just like I have to do a ma'aser sefira, the ma'aser sefira makes the day into what it is. So now we understand how to answer the question. When the Ramban says, he's not excluding that it can't be a mitzvah. Could be v'safar is a mitzvah. I'm the mitzvah is not a reason why it shouldn't be a mitzvah. Just like the Achronim asked that tefillah is a mitzvah, so it could be the Sefira is also a mitzvah. And the way it's mashma in some Rishem Takid, it's a mitzvah, and the only reason why we don't make a bracha because maybe there'll be a stira liyami meilu. It could be it's mitzvah. What he's saying is the Sefira by Zov and Zova is not to be kaveh diyayim. Because there can't be a din of Kriyas V'yayim. Kriyas V'yayim means that it has to be that today's the first day, today's the second day, today's the seventh day, and then I go and table myself. By Zov and Zova, there's no such thing. I'm giving to Masan. So I don't have to be Kaveh Dafka these 7 days. I have to have Shiva Nekiyim before I table. That's the din of it. But I don't have to have Dafka these 7 days, so there can't be a din of Sefira V'peh. Sefira V'peh is the pshat, the Kriyas Hayomim. That's the Ramban. And the same thing that you have in the Ramban, you have in the Ran in the end of Psochim, and you have in a whole bunch of other Rishonim, the same thing. In other words, by Sefira, there's not a din that I just count the day that it is. I'm making the day. That's the pshat of the Sefira. You have the Rambam. You have the Rambam in Mitzvah's essay. Kuf Samach Aleph. Mitzvah Kuf Samach Aleph. Sefer Mitzvah. Tzivonu Lisper Mekzir Seir Matisha Rabbein Gei. V'amar Yisalas Fat Mechem Nochas HaShabbos. V'da. V'kamoishin Eschayvu Bezdin Limne Shneisa Yevel Shona Shona V'Shmita Shmita. Kamoishin Ba'anim B'Masha Kodam in the Mitzvah of Kuf Mem. But the Kach Chayev Kol Echad Ve'echad Memenu Limnes Yemei HaOmer Yom V'Shvua Shvua. Everybody's obligated to count the Yemei HaOmer Yom Shvua Shvua. Shvua Omer Tispu Chamishim Yom Omer Shiva Shvua Tispu. K'moi She'Minyan HaShonim HaShmita Mitzvah Achas. Just like the minyan of Shonim and Shmita is one mitzvah. K'moi She'Ba'ana Kain Sefira Sa'ema Mitzvah Achas. Also Sefira Sa'ema, even though I have to count the days and I have to count the weeks, it's one mitzvah. That's the way everybody before us counted it only as one mitzvah. Over here he's arguing on Rabbeinu Yerucham and some other Rishonim that hold it's two mitzvahs. That's the truth. I don't make a mistake from what it says in the Gemara in Menachos. Mitzvah lemimna yema, mitzvah lemimna shvur. There's a mitzvah to count the days and a mitzvah to count the weeks. Since it says mitzvah, so maybe it says mitzvah twice, so maybe it's taka two mitzvahs. He says, because when a mitzvah could have a lot of different parts, and there's a mitzvah to do every part of the mitzvah. So when it says mitzvah lemimne yema, mitzvah lemimne shvua, it doesn't mean that it's two separate mitzvahs. It means that each counting the days and counting the weeks is, each one is a mitzvah because they're two parts of the same mitzvah. The Rambam goes on. It would have been two mitzvahs. If the Lashon of Chazal would be minyan hayomi mitzvah, minyan shavuos mitzvah, so then taka would be two mitzvahs. And this is clear. There's a difference between mitzvah lemin yom and mitzvah lemin shvua, where over there it just means that I have a mitzvah to do every part of the mitzvah. Or if it would say minyan hayomi mitzvah, minyan hashvuos mitzvah, so then taka, each one would be a separate mitzvah for itself. Because even when you say the Lashon, there's an obligation to do this and this, that doesn't mean that this action is a mitzvah for itself. It could be all part of the same mitzvah, but it's a mitzvah to do every part of the mitzvah. And the raya to this is because we count the shvuos every single night. When we say it's so many days and so many weeks, so many weeks and so many days. If the shvuos would be a separate mitzvah for itself, we would mention the shvuos only in the end of the week. And we would say two brachas. So Sheikh would say it's one of Sefira Me'ha'imah, but Sefira Shvuos Ha'imah. It's not. We only make one bracha. Our mitzvah is Sefira Ha'imah, Yom Shvuos. Mitzvah is Sefira Ha'imah, the days and the weeks. Now, this Rambam at first glance is not understood. First of all, what's the difference in the Lashon mitzvah, the Mimne Yom, mitzvah, the Mimne Shvuah, or Minyan Hayom mitzvah, Minyan Hashvuos mitzvah? That the Rambam says it would say this Lashon would mean that it's two mitzvahs. This Lashon doesn't mean that. And the raya that the Rambam brings, that from the fact that we say by Shemaina Yom Shem Shvu Echad V'Yom Echad, for example. So if the minyan of Yishvuos would be a separate mitzvah, so we would count the weeks only not in the middle of the week. We would count it only in the end of the week. The 3 days, how we count. One day is that the Alter Rebbe brings the 3 days. ביום שבין כל שבוע לשבוע, מחס עד י"ג ועד בכלל, מיום ט"ו עד 20, וכן היום שבין שאר השבועות, יש היום שאין צריך למנוס את השבועות, אלא היום בלבד. Some takas say that in the middle of the week, I only have to mention the days. When it's 8 days, I only have to say, yom ches, yom shveni yom, you don't have to say shvu echad yom echad. V'yesh yom lehecha, yom ches, yom shvu echad yom echad, and some say that no, when it's 8 days, I say shvu echad yom echad, and I don't have to count the days. I don't have to say shveni yom. V'yesh yom shetzich le'im, the way we count, I have to say, yom shveni yom, shem shvu echad yom echad. So there's 3 days exactly. How do I count? Whether I count, and which has a beer in itself. But let's just take the 3 days. Do I count when it's 8 days? Do I just say Shmoni Yomim? Do I say just Shvu Echad V'Yom Echad? Or do I say the way we count Shmoni Yomim Shem Shvu Echad V'Yom Echad? So there's a machlokes how I have to count the weeks or how I have to count the days. So how is the Rambam Mechiach that from the fact that we're saying Shvu Echad V'Yom Echad, so obviously Shavuos is not a separate mitzvah. This machlokes of how to count is how do I express the 8 days? Shvu Echad V'Yom Echad, do I just say Shmona Yomim, or do I say both? What does that machlokes have to do whether Shavuot is a separate mitzvah or it's not a separate mitzvah? That's a question of how do I count the weeks? Do I count the weeks just by when it's a full week, or do I count the week together with the days? That it's a week with so many days, which is machlokes on the Yomim and the Shavuos. Do I have to mention Shemini Yom? Don't I have to mention Shemini Yom? But what does that have to do whether it's one mitzvah or two mitzvahs? And then the third raya that he brings, that because we're making only one bracha, that over here the chur, the achronim asked, the chur is often a steer. By tefillin, the Rambam Paskins, tefillin shel yan, tefillin shel rosh is two separate mitzvahs. But we make only one bracha. So it's two separate mitzvahs, tefillin shel yan and tefillin shel rosh, because each one is a separate thing. So over here also, each one is a separate thing. So and still we make only one bracha because they're connected one with the other. So why over here by Sefira's Eimer does the Rambam say because you make one bracha, it's a right, it's one mitzvah. By tefillin, the Rambam says it's two mitzvahs and we make one bracha according to the sheet of the Rambam. The Rambam Shitose. Other Rishonim argue it's two brachas, but according to the sheet of the Rambam, the way we fear it is it's only one bracha. So what's the pshat in the Rambam? So the answer is because Sefira is not only to mention what day it is or what amount of time passed by. That's not the mitzvah of Sefira. The mitzvah of Sefira is to be kaveya and to make. We'll soon see another rise in the Rosh with Alter Rebbe. That when I count the Sefira, I'm being kaveya the yom, and that's the meaning of Sefira v'peh. Sefira v'peh is the pshat is I'm kaveya the yom, I'm making it a yom echad l'eimer, yom shnei yomim l'eimer. I'm being kaveya, I'm making the kviyas of the Sefira. It's not only that I'm counting what is. So what the Rambam is saying is, if it would be two mitzvahs, the pshat is that there's a separate kriyas for the day and there's a separate kriyas for the weeks. If there's a separate kriyas for the days and a separate kriyas for the weeks, because it's two mitzvahs, so then Shua Echad V'Yom Echad, that's not a kriya in the week. The kriya of the week is only shaykh when I have a week. The kriyas in the days when I have every single day. So the fact that I'm saying Shua Echad V'Yom Echad is obviously that it's not that the kriya that the kriyas over here is not days separately and weeks separately. And that's the difference between Sefira's Eimer and tefillin. By tefillin, even though it's two separate mitzvahs, but they're connected one with the other. They're connected one to the other. And I'm doing one after the other without a hefsek, so therefore the bracha and tefillin can go on both. No problem. Mashenkin over here, the kriyas of the yomim, which is every single day by itself, the kriyas of the week, which is every single week, a week is a week, a day is a day. And they have no shaykhs one with the other. This is done only when I have a full week, so I can be kaveya the week. This is done every single day by itself on itself. And the kriya of the week has no shaykhs with the kriyas of the day. And that is a difference. When it says mitzvah l'mimna yema, mitzvah l'mimna shvua, I'm talking about the pu'ula. So that's not a hechach, the pu'ula, how I do it, how it counts for your Eimer. So it's no hechach over there. That's two separate mitzvahs. It's two parts of the same mitzvah. Mash'enken, if it would say minyan hayomim mitzvah, minyan hashvuas mitzvah, that means that minyan hayomim is a mitzvah for itself, and the minyan hashvuas is a mitzvah for itself. So then taka would be two mitzvahs, because there's a kriyas of days and a mitzvahs of the kriyas of the days and the mitzvahs of the kriyas of the week. So then it would taka be two mitzvahs. So you see in the Rambam also there's a word of kriyas. Now let's go a step further and we'll see how this is mamish like. That's the only way we understand the lashon of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe starts off in Sefira's Eimer. Mitzvahs esim in atayr she yisber kol echad min Yisrael shiva shvuos yom. It's a mitzvah in every single yid that you should count shiva shvuos yom. There's such a lashon of shiva shvuos yomim in the Teres Kainim in Parshas Bahar. But the Alter Rebbe over here is meshanef and the lashon of all the Rishonim. In the Rambam in the Sefer Mitzvah says Lisper Tisha Rabbeim Yom. In the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam says Lisper Shiva Shavuos. Shavuos Shabbos Tmimis. Sorry, Shavuos Shabbos Tmimis. In other Rishonim it says Lisper Shiva Shavuos. The lashon of the Rif is Limleis Yomim Shel Shiva Shavuos. That's the lashon of the Rif, which is a very clear lashon. Shiva Yom Shel Shiva Shavuos, or Shiva Shavuos, or Memtes Yom. That's clear lashon. What is this lashon of Shiva Shavuos Yom that Alter Rebbe stresses? Why does he use dafka this lotion? And then what's the ride and what's the psukim that he brings over here? What does he mean with that? With Shiva Shuis? So this pasuk, it's a machlokes rishonim. The Achronim speak that there's a steer in the Gemara. The Sheva Shabbos Primus, does it go in the days? Does it go in the weeks? There's a steer in the Gemara. The Gemara Menachos is mashma that goes in the weeks. The Gemara Chagiga says the weeks I learn out from Shiva Shvois Tisperlecha. What does he want with this pasuk over here? And the Alter Rebbe over here, Bechlal, is not discussing that I have to count the days and the weeks. That I have to count the days and the weeks. The Alter Rebbe says that in Sif Hey, when I tell you it's a chlimlis a yamim v'gam shvuos. When I tell you I have to count the days and I have to count the weeks. Shneimar tispu chamishim yayim, came at chamishim, and ever shiva shvuos tispu lecha. So that's the psukim that he brings. Over here he doesn't even mention the tispu chamishim yayim. So what's the shiva? He just brings the pasuk. Then it says shvuos tispu lecha. Then the Alter Rebbe goes on. The Dorshu Chachamim tispu lecha yochol bebezdin. K'may b'yeva should say from bezdin sheva shabbos shani. Mekatchen Shnasa Chamishim leYovel. Talmud Leim is fighting the Chem Sheila Sefer lechol echadech. Mail in the Gemara that the Gemara is dashing the psukim. I understand. It says to fight the lechol loshen yochid. I might think that there's best in count. Talmud Leim is fighting the Chem Sheila lechol echadech. Why does the Alter Rebbe in Halacha Lemaisa have to bring down the Havamin of the Gemara? Why isn't it good enough for the Alter Rebbe just to bring down the fight and the Chem Sheila lechol echadech? Why does he have to bring the Havamina and be Meirich? This is what Yochel bebezdin k'moy b'yeva should say from bezdin sheva shabbos hashani. Now, and the Alter Rebbe adds umekatshim shnas hachamishim. Why do I need that addition? What does the Alter Rebbe want with that addition? Umekatshim shnas. What's that negay over here? We're talking about the mitzvah of Sefira, not talking about the kiddush b'yeva. So, and over here, Adrabah, the Shvuos, the Yom HaChamishim Shvuos is talking about Bezdin. Bezdin is Mekadosh Yom HaChamishim, not every Yochi. So what is the Yom HaChamishim? That's the 50th day of the Sefira. Fine, and that's what Bezdin is Mekadosh. But that goes to the Churitz who Bezdin. So what's he have to bring over here? Mekachim Shnas HaChamishim. What's the Negei over here? Mekachim Shnas HaChamishim. The Alter Rebbe wants to tell you what Sefira is. That you see from the Havamin of the Gemara, if Bezdin would count, what's the pshat that Bezdin is counting? Bezdin is telling you what it is, or Bezdin is making the Metzias of the Yeh. Just like Bezdin makes the Metzias of the Yontav, Bezdin makes the Metzias of Rosh Chodesh, etc., which is separate rate fully. But Bezdin makes the Metzias. Bezdin makes the Kviyas. Bezdin says what it is. And when Bezdin says that today is Rosh Chodesh, so they make Rosh Chodesh. And through making Rosh Chodesh to the Mekadosh Yisrael v'Hazmanim, they're making the Yontav, and brings the Mekadosh of Shnas HaYovel, just like the Mekadosh of Shnas HaYovel through the Kiddush of Bezdin. That's how Yovel gets its Kedusha. That's how Yovel gets its Metzias. So from the fact that the Gemara has a Harim and Yochel beBezdin, Talmud Leim is Fat and the Sefira of Kol Echad ve'Echad is no different than if Bezdin would count. And just like if Bezdin would count, so Bezdin was making the Metzias, so the Sefira of Kol Echad ve'Echad is that Kol Yochid ve'Yochid counts. He makes the Metzias of the day, makes the Kriyas of the day. That's the Pshat Sefira b'Peh. That I need Sefira b'Peh. It's not Sefira b'Machshava, and I have to mebate what I'm thinking, and that's what the Sefira is, like a Rishud Leib stuff. But the Pshat of Sefira is that I'm making the Metzias Hayeh. Just like Bezdin, if they would count, they're making the Metzias of the day. That's it. So what Metzias am I making over here? I'm making the Metzias of Shiva, Shvuos, Yomim. That's the Metzias that I'm making. Because since the mitzvah is to count the days and to count the weeks, so there's now a chefza of Shiva, Shvuos, Yomim. And where did I get this chefza of Shiva, Shvuos, Yomim? That's the pshat in the posik. Sheva Shabbos Tmimes, not that Tiyana. Through your Sefira, through Usfartem, it's Sheva Shabbos Tmimis Tiyeno. It'll be Sheva Shabbos Tmimis. That I have to count Shiva Shvuos Yomim, and that's the meaning of the Sheva Shabbos Tmimis Tiyeno through the Sefira of Kol Echad ve'Echad. How do I make it? By counting the days and counting the weeks. The beer in the 3 days, how exactly I count? That's a separate beer, which Enkam came after. So we have over here a basic yesod that the Taich of Sefira is Shetehei. The Taich of Sefira is not stamp that I'm saying what day is. A day has its own mitzvahs. The Taich of Sefira is that I'm making the day. If you want, we find this Achayim, it doesn't have to be my Chedushim. There's Oysa Meir and Meshach Chochma that he says that what's the Hecher for Sefira repair is because by a Sov, in the Sov, it says V'sofar Lo, he says because over there there's the etzem mitzias of the yom is different. Why? Because these are you made tumah and these are you made taira. That's the V'sofar Lo that you have to have in mind that these are you made. That's the V'sofar. Even though over there you don't make it, it's mitzat atzmah. He says the Tispru Chamishim Yom, how to have Sefira, and that's the etzem Ramban and Chumash also. Because since the day is different, it's yontif, it's mufresh, it's separated from all the other days because it has its own dinim, because it's yontif, because it's kedusha and the krovos hakarbonos, etc. So that's the sphere of the Chamishim Yom. The 49 days. How are these days different than any other day of the year? 49 days. So it says the sphere of the peh makes them different. Gives each day its own count. It's a Meshach Chochma. Okay, in fact, there's a lot of Gemaras with that. Okay, that's separate. There's a Netziv. The Netziv says, the Netziv argues, it says, Sefira be'etzem, just like by Zov and Zov, it should be Machshav. Over here, he brings the Gemara Menachos, but the Gemara Menachos said, Rabbi Ezra said, when he asked on the Tzdukim, that the Tzdukim said Mochas Shabbos means Mochas Shabbos Bereishis, and Rabbi Ezra said that there's two psukim. One is Shabbos Shabbos Pnimis Tiyeno, and one is Tispru Chamishim Yom. This is when Pesach came out on Shabbos. So then you have Shabbos Shabbos Pnimis, and this is when Pesach comes out in the middle of the week. Then you have the Tispru Chamishim Yom. So you see that clearly the Mochas Shabbos is not necessarily Shabbos, because you could have Tispru Chamishim Yom. That's a Rabbi Yochanan answer. So Amarav, there's a tshuva to his answer is because Dil Makid Abayit, Mitzvah L'min Yema, Mitzvah L'min Yema, Mitzvah L'min Shvur. And that's why it says the two psukim. That's the steer that they asked. That over here is mashma that the Shabbos Shabbos Pnimis goes into Shavuos, and in Chagiga it says clearly that Shabbos Shabbos Pnimis go that Shavuos we learn out from Shiva Shavuos Tispa. Okay, that's so he wants to say like this because the pshat is that that without the two psukim, I would say that what's the pshat Sefira? Sefira is machshav. What's the pshat Sefira b'machshav? Hamtonas hazman. I have to wait for this time to pass by. Comes along Rov and says, no, it's a mitzvah of Sefira b'peh. So Rav Zevin in the Moedim Ba'alocha, he asked him to see if there's no remez in the Gemara and Menachos that there has to be Sefira b'peh. All the Gemara says in Menachos, Dil Makid Abayit, mitzvah l'min yom, mitzvah l'min shvur. That's all Rav says. Where do you see over there mitzvah l'min b'peh? So we hear Pshat and Netziv is also the. What's the Pshat Sefira b'machshava? Sefira b'machshava is Hamtonas hazman. I have to wait for this time. I have to know the time. I have to know what amount of time passed by. I have to know where I'm holding in the world. That's Sefira b'machshava. I'm not doing anything. I'm not accomplishing anything. Sefira b'peh is I'm making the kriyas. I'm making the chalois hayeh. In Hamtonas hazman, just to know where I am, how many days passed by, how much time passed by from Pesach. There's no difference between Yom and Shavuos. Yom and Shavuos is the same, as far as Hamtonas Hazman is concerned, it's the same thing. There's no difference between Yom and Shavuos. It's just different words. 7 days is 1 week. It's different words, but there's no difference in the Etzem Chalois Hadvorim. This is in Hamtonas Hazman. Hamtonas Hazman, you have to wait a certain amount of time. I have to wait a certain amount of time. Is there a difference whether I say I have to wait 7 days or I have to wait a week? Since over here, mitzvah l'min l'yom and mitzvah l'min l'shvur, that means that there's a chalois. And in a chalois, the chalois of yomim is not the same chalois as a week. A week is one type of a chalois, a day is a different type of a chalois. So for the fact that it's mitzvah l'min l'yom and mitzvah l'min l'shvur, that's what the two psukim, that they have to make a chalois of the days separately, and have to make a chalois of Shabbos Shabbos Pnimis Tiyana. That's the pshat in the Gemara. So the only way I can have two separate chalosim, that's only if it's Sefira b'peh. So it comes out, Sefira is not just that I know which day it is, or the day has its own mitzias. That's not the mitzvah of Sefira. The mitzvah of Sefira is to say and create what the day is. And we're making a mitzias of Shiva, Shvuos, Yomim. Just like Bezdin, if they would have a mitzvah to count, so they would be making the day for what it is. They would make the chalois of the day. So over here, and that's what the Rebbe stresses in the Sikh. That Sefira She'omer is not like Yom Tov. Sefira She'omer is not like Shabbos. Sefira She'omer is mitzvah kol echad ve'echad. I even ask, what's mitzvah? So it's a mitzvah kol echad ve'echad. Everybody has to know the cheshbon. You don't understand what's going on. The mitzvah of Sefira She'omer is not stamped to know which day it is, that the day has its own mitzias. But I have to make the mitzias of the day through my counting. That's what the getter of Sefira is. That I make by Zov and Zov Taka, I don't have to make the day, except according to the Shalom. But according to the way Rav person passing, I don't have to make. I just have to that they should yizoru, like the Ramban says, that they should know where they're holding, etc. And like the Ramban says, like in the Havamina, that maybe that's the way, that's the mitzvah of the Yevel of the Sefira, that they just have to know which year passed by. They don't have to make. Then the Ramban says no. They have to actually make it and they have to make each year into what year it is. The Reb Chaim, we're not going to go into it right now. That even though it might be a certain year, but since there was no mitzvah to count, so you have to start to count all over again in Shemitah B'Yevel, because there was no chalois, and therefore you have to start over in the Ezra in the cheshbon of Shonim. Because even though that there was the Shim Shon, you knew exactly which year it is, but since there was no chalois and there was no mitzvah counting, so there was no chalois. So you have to start to count all over again. Because that's the type of Sefira. The Sefira is the pshat is making the chalois. So over here, this chalois of Sefira She'omer, the Torah said, is a mitzvah kol echad ve'echad. The chalois of Shabbos, that has to do with the mitzvah Yom HaShvi. That's not totally in kol echad ve'echad. That's totally in the mitzvah Olam. And that's how the chalois of Shabbos, the Shabbos mekatshe v'kaima from Sheishis made Bereishis. The Eibishter already made the chalois. Even over there, there's a tas as a Shabbos. Okay, there's a separate thing. By Yom Tov, Bezdin makes the chalois, makes the kedusha mekadosh Yisrael v'azmani. By Sefira the kol echad ve'echad. The Rebbe is not just saying that everybody has a mitzvah, but the mitzvah is of what the day is. And now when I pass the Kavat and the mitzvah is by me only one day passed. But over here, there's a day more. Over here, there's a day less, and that's what the Rebbe says. What the shayl, what the achronim make a mistake. So I have 13 days. I have it twice. So what? Who cares? They suffer. They don't want to make it. They don't understand. That's a steer menei bay to Sefira. The Sefira is not that the day is what it is on its own. And therefore, when there's a mitzvah of Sefira kol echad ve'echad, and by Shavuos, okay, that's a separate way. The rise that Shavuos is direct hemshech on to Sefira. That's why you have to keep Shavuos according to your Sefira. Like all the Rishonim can say that Shavuos that is Yom HaChamishim Lo'im, and that's the Tisbu Chamishim Yom. So comes out the Kitzur. There's a lot more to talk. I was mamish very much mekatzer over here, just to bring you some of the Yisayas. The Achronim, either they didn't understand what Kavat is, or they didn't understand what Sefira She'omer is, or they didn't understand both. It's achronim. I'm not being mezalzel on anybody. It's mamish tachtenim. They're arguing. They possibly didn't understand what's going on. The Rebbe is, if you learn the Sikha, you learn the halachas of Sefira She'omer, and you know what the mitzvahs of Kavat is. So the Sikha of the Rebbe is poshet and boru. And there's poshet, like the Rebbe writes in a letter to Rav Zevin. That Zevin also in the beginning was arguing, and the Rebbe said the only thing about that sikha is that it's so poshut. Why does it have to be said? When is it poshut? But you know what the mitzvahs of Sefira She'omer. We know what the pshat of Sefira She'omer is, and you know what the pshat of Kavat Tarich is. So then attack becomes poshut. It's impossible because again, the Gagdora of Kavat Tarich is not the pshat. I'm traveling into the future. I'm traveling into the past. It's the same day, except that this day, that it's the same day. I didn't have more than one day. This day on the west side of the Kavat Tarich has a din of Yom Shlishi. This same day on the east side of the Kavat Tarich has a din of Yom Rishon or Yom Sheni. I'm sorry. because from the time of Sheshes made Reishis on the west side of the Kav one more day passed by from the time of the creation of Zman, from the time of the creation of the days. And that Yesod is written in the Ma'aseh Hashem, in some Sefer writes it, the Zbor writes it, the Zera Ephraim brings it down in the Pirush of the Psikta of Rav Kana. And okay, so this is al regel achas. There's much more to be said, but this is the Mitzvah.